I got divorced and moved to Spain. My ex-wife married her new man 3 months later. A luxury resort wedding in Muskoka. 180 guests. Everything she'd dreamed of for years. I was 6,000 kilometers away, starting over in Valencia. My own son stood beside the groom as best man. My daughter was the only one who saw through everything. Then during the reception, a guest who nobody recognized stood up and asked one simple question. The room went silent. Within 48 hours, the video had 2.8 million views. Her fairy tale wedding became the most watched disaster of the summer. 6 hours later, she called me, sobbing, demanding answers. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate you taking the time. Quick question before we begin. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. I'd love to know. Fair warning, this story contains fictionalized elements designed for education and emotional impact. Any resemblance to real individuals or events is coincidental, but the lessons, the truth underneath it all, those are absolutely real. Now, let's get into it. My name is Malcolm Ashford. I'm 63 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is walk away from everything he built. It started in Oakville, Ontario, in a house that looked perfect from the street, $2.8 million on Lakeshore Road. Stone facade, mature trees, a view of Lake Ontario that made real estate agents weep. My ex-wife Diane had spent 15 years perfecting that house. She was talented at that. Interior decorator to Oakville's elite, she had a gift for making spaces beautiful and people invisible. 32 years I spent in that marriage. 32 years watching the expectations shift every time I thought I'd finally met them. The kitchen renovated twice in 3 years because the countertops didn't reflect our evolution as a family. My favorite reading chair relocated to the basement without discussion. At neighborhood parties, she'd correct my pronunciation of wines, then laugh with friends while I stood there feeling like a guest in my own home. By year 30, I was sleeping in the guest room. By year 31, I'd stopped trying to figure out which version of perfect she wanted. I just knew I wasn't it. We had 2 children. Sophie, 31, a corporate lawyer in Vancouver. Sharp, independent, saw through her mother's patterns years ago. Nathan, 28, accountant at a Bay Street firm. Smart but caught in Diane's orbit. Believed her version where I was the problem. Distant, emotionally unavailable. Married to the business. All her words coming out of his mouth. The stroke scare came October 15th, 2023. Minor thanks in advance, the doctors said. Transient ischemic attack. A warning shot from my own brain. I was in the living room. Diane was explaining to a contractor why the crown molding needed to be replaced because the previous installation was builder grade and didn't suit our aesthetic anymore. My left hand went numb. My vision blurred. Words wouldn't form right. I sat down heavily, waited for it to pass. It did, mostly, after 20 minutes. But I knew something was wrong. I drove myself to Oakville Trafalgar Memorial. Diane couldn't come. The contractor needed supervision. The neurologist used the phrase lifestyle factors 11 times. I counted. She leaned forward, looked at my chart, then at me. Mr. Ashford, your brain is sending you a message. This was a warning. The next one might not be. Are you listening? I was listening. Lying in that hospital bed, staring at fluorescent lights, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I could die in that house. And Diane wouldn't notice until my absence inconvenienced her schedule. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. We'd stopped seeing each other as people somewhere around year 15. To her, I was infrastructure, something that funded the lifestyle and occasionally malfunctioned. Sophie flew in from Vancouver, held my hand, didn't say much, just sat there, solid and real. Nathan called. Brief, distracted, asked if I was okay. I said yes. He said good, I'm in the middle of quarter end, and hung up. I heard Diane in the background saying something about how I'd always been dramatic about health things. The discharge nurse was kind. Had that look medical professionals get when they see the real diagnosis isn't on the chart. Take care of yourself, Mr. Ashford, she said quietly. Sometimes that means making hard choices. Driving home, I took the long way along Lakeshore, watched autumn light hit the water. I'd built a construction company from nothing. Ashford Development, commercial projects, institutional buildings. Sold it 4 years ago for $12.2 million. Created something real, something that stood. But I couldn't build a marriage that didn't require me to disappear. That night, Diane knocked on the guest room door. Are you feeling better? I need to know if you can attend the Henderson dinner on Saturday. I'm fine, I said. She nodded, satisfied, and left. Not a question about the diagnosis. Not a word about what the doctor said. Just logistics. I lay on that bed, hand on my chest, feeling my pulse. Still here. Still beating. The question was simple. Did I want to survive, or did I want to live? The thanks in advance was minor. The wake-up call was seismic. Lying in that hospital room, I'd realized I'd spent 3 decades making myself smaller so Diane could expand. My body had just given me a warning I couldn't afford to ignore. The choice was mine. The planning took 3 months, November through January. I approached it the way I'd approached every major project, methodically, quietly, leaving nothing to chance. The company's sale had left me $7.8 million after taxes and Diane's lifestyle expenses over the years. I'd been careful. She'd never paid attention to the details. Money was my job. Being invisible was my job. I created an irrevocable family trust, $2.4 million, with Sophie as sole trustee. Diane couldn't touch it. Another $1.8 million went into accounts she didn't know existed. International investments, bonds, structured for income. My passive returns would generate $95,000 annually. Valencia expenses would run about $4,200 monthly. The math worked comfortably. The house was trickier, worth $2.8 million, mortgage-free. I refinanced quietly, took out $1.9 million through a private lender who didn't ask questions. Diane signed where I pointed, never asked what it was for. Financial documents were beneath her attention. When I left, the house would have $900,000 in equity and a $1.9 million mortgage attached. I left her the house, the cars, the furniture, everything she'd perfected, and the debt that came with it. Spain's non-lucrative visa required proof of passive income and health insurance. I qualified easily. Found an apartment online in El Carmen, Valencia's old town. River views, terracotta rooftops, 1,800 euros monthly. Set up international banking. Enrolled in online Spanish classes. December, I told Sophie over dinner at a quiet restaurant in Yorkville. Laid out everything. The trust, the plan, the date. She listened without interruption. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Dad, you should have done this 10 years ago. I know. Nathan's going to lose his mind. I know that too. She traced the rim of her wine glass. I'll manage things on this end. He'll come around. Eventually. I didn't tell Nathan. At 28, he still believed his mother's narrative. Maybe he needed to. Maybe that was his journey to walk. Divorce papers were filed quietly through my lawyer in Toronto. Diane would be served after I landed. January 8th, 2024. Arrived like any other Wednesday, 4:30 a.m. I dressed in the dark, carried 2 suitcases downstairs. 32 years compressed into 2 bags. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen island, house keys on top, a note that said everything and nothing. The house is yours. The mortgage is current. I'm gone. Malcolm. The taxi came at 5. No ceremony. I just closed the door, walked down the driveway, and didn't look back. At Pearson, I called Sophie from the gate. It's done. Good. Text me when you land. Take care of your brother. Always do. The flight routed through London. 14 hours total. Somewhere over the Atlantic, drinking mediocre airline coffee, I watched clouds turn gold with sunrise. My head didn't hurt. My hand wasn't numb. I wasn't carrying 32 years anymore. By the time Diane found my note, I was over the ocean. Sophie would call, explain what she could. Nathan would rage. But I'd spent 3 decades trying to be enough for Diane. I wouldn't spend another day proving myself to anyone. 6 months later, her new marriage would force me to make another choice. Protect my son or stay silent. I chose truth. The Valencia morning arrived with church bells and the smell of fresh bread from the panaderia below my apartment. 5 months in, I'd built a routine I barely recognized, in the best possible way. No schedules, no performances, no one asking me to be smaller or quieter or more convenient. My apartment in El Carmen had hand-painted tiles and a small balcony overlooking the Turia Gardens, where joggers passed in the morning light like they actually enjoyed being alive. Mornings I'd walk to Mercado Central, buy fruit and cheese, practice my terrible Spanish with patient vendors. Afternoons I'd swim at the municipal pool. Evenings I'd sit at Café Lisboa, nursing cortados, watching the city breathe. I'd taken up watercolors, badly at first, then less badly. Joined a Tuesday painting class near the cathedral. My blood pressure dropped to 122/78. I slept 8 hours a night. Lost 12 kilograms without trying. The investments performed as expected. Expenses ran $4,100 monthly. I was comfortable, content, even. Sophie called every Sunday, thriving in Vancouver. Made partner track. Nathan still hadn't called. Not once. Sophie said he needed time. I gave him space. That Tuesday in June, I was sketching rooftops at Café Lisboa when my phone buzzed. Email from Richard Blackwood, old colleague from the construction days. Semi-retired now. Consulted for institutional investors. Kept his ear to the ground. The message was short. Malcolm, long shot, but thought you'd want to know. Diane's getting married again. July 20th. Guy named Victor Brennan. Runs a pre-construction condo company. Heard his name come up in some concerning conversations lately. Big destination wedding planned. Taboo Muskoka Resort. Figured you should have a heads up. Stay well, Richard. I read it twice. Set my phone down. Picked up my cortado. Felt nothing but mild curiosity. The way you're curious about a television show you stopped watching halfway through the first season. I typed back. Thanks for the heads up. I'm good. Really good. Then I opened my laptop. Victor Brennan's Instagram was public. 280,000 followers. Photos of luxury condo renderings, groundbreaking ceremonies, charity galas. Diane on his arm at every event. Engagement announcement. When you know, you know. I scrolled. My project manager instincts doing what they did. Looking for patterns. Checking foundations. 3 pre-construction condo towers announced in 18 months. Aggressive timelines. Brennan Developments Incorporated. Bold promises about luxury living and guaranteed appreciation. I pulled up Ontario business registrations. Public record. Brennan Developments Incorporated showed 3 active projects. Lakeside Residences in Burlington. The Brennan at King West. Skyline Oakville. Combined pre-sales reportedly over $180 million. But the corporate filings told a different story. Construction liens filed by 2 contractors. Unpaid invoices totaling $890,000. A lawsuit from a structural engineering firm for $340,000 in outstanding fees. Then I found the Tarian complaints. Ontario's new home warranty administrator. 14 registered complaints across his projects. Delayed closings. Unfinished common areas. Deposits held beyond legal limits. I sat back, watching tourists pass Café Lisboa, their laughter mixing with Spanish conversations. I was finally starting to understand. Victor's empire looked magnificent from the outside. Perfect renderings. Confident lifestyle marketing. But I'd spent 30 years in construction. I knew what warning signs looked like. Revenue projections that didn't match construction costs. Deposits collected before permits were secured. Contractors not getting paid while marketing budgets expanded. Victor's foundation wasn't just weak. It was hollow, and Diane was about to marry into it. 3 days after Richard's message, I was still digging. Not because I wanted Diane to suffer. I genuinely moved past that. But Nathan's name kept appearing in Victor's social media. Tagged photos, captions calling him my future stepson and financial wizard helping with the numbers. My son was about to publicly endorse a fraud. I'd spent 3 decades reading project budgets. You learn to see what's missing, not just what's there. The PPSA filings showed personal property security registrations against Victor personally. 2 luxury vehicles financed. A boat, equipment pledged as collateral multiple times. The lawsuit was public record. Margaret Chen versus Brennan Developments Incorporated filed March 2024. Chen claimed she'd invested $2.1 million as a limited partner in 2022. Victor had promised 22% annual returns from pre-construction profits. 18 months later, she'd received nothing. Her accountant discovered the money had been used to cover operating costs and Victor's personal expenses. Classic structure. Use new investor money to pay old obligations. Keep announcing new projects before anyone notices the old ones aren't completing. I sat back from my laptop. Through my balcony doors, Valencia stretched out in afternoon light, church towers and terracotta roofs, and a life I'd never imagined. Somewhere in Toronto, Victor was posting photos of private jets and engagement champagne. And somewhere on Bay Street, my son thought this man was worth admiring. My phone rang. Sophie. Dad. I've been looking into this Victor situation too. It's worse than what you found. Tell me. I ran his corporate structure through some forensic analysis. She was using her firm's research tools, I knew. The numbers don't add up. He's showing investors projected returns based on full sellouts, but his actual closing rates are around 40%. The Tarian complaints are just the beginning. There are at least 3 unit purchasers threatening litigation over deposit refunds. How many investors total? Her voice was careful. 22 that I can identify, mostly high net worth individuals, friends of friends, some retirees who put in their savings. Total investment pool looks like about $8 million. I closed my eyes. 22 families about to lose everything because they'd trusted the right smile and the wrong numbers. There's more, Sophie said. Nathan's not just attending as a guest. He's doing a speech, talking about Victor's vision and integrity. His firm's conservative. Dad. If this collapses with Nathan publicly endorsing Victor at the wedding, they'll question his judgment. His career could take serious damage. I tried warning him last week. He shut me down, said I was being paranoid, said I sounded just like you. That stung more than I expected. Sophie, I can't control what Diane does, but Nathan is about to make a very public mistake. The Chen lawsuit goes to trial in September, 2 months after the wedding. When that becomes news, everyone in those photos is going to be asked questions. What do you want to do? After we hung up, I stood on my balcony, watching the Turia turn amber in evening light. I couldn't stop the wedding, couldn't force Nathan to see what he wasn't ready to see, but I could make sure truth had a voice when it mattered. I scrolled through my contacts, found a name I hadn't used in 8 years. Patricia Holloway, crisis communications consultant in Toronto. A decade ago, I'd helped her husband's company through a difficult restructuring, saved 200 jobs. She'd told me if I ever needed anything, call. I called. Patricia Holloway. Patricia, it's Malcolm Ashford. Pause. Malcolm, it's been years. How are you? Good. Living in Spain now. Listen, I need a favor. I need someone credible to attend a wedding. Someone who can ask the right questions in a room full of people who've stopped asking them. Silence. Then a thoughtful sound. Malcolm, I think I know exactly the right person for that. We switched to video that afternoon. Patricia's office had downtown Toronto visible through her window, glass towers, catching afternoon sun. What are you thinking exactly? I explained. Not sabotage, just questions. Someone credible who could raise doubt publicly without aggression. Make people think rather than react. She leaned back. Eleanor Marsh, retired forensic accountant, 68. She's done expert witness work for the OSC, testified in securities fraud cases. Juries trust her immediately. Grandmotherly presence but absolutely lethal with numbers. Can you get her in? I'll add her as my +1 on the vendor list. Cover story, old family friend of the bride's family. Happened to be vacationing in Muskoka. I'll vouch personally. Patricia had connections everywhere. I'll coordinate with the event planner for a toast opportunity. Something about honoring longtime friendships. I sent her the filings. Chen lawsuit documents. Tarian complaints. Corporate registrations. Timeline of inconsistencies. Eleanor will weave them into questions, not accusations, Patricia said. Truth without hostility. She's masterful at it. After we hung up, I felt something settle in my chest. Purpose. The kind that comes from protecting someone who doesn't know they need protection. 4 days later, my phone rang while I was cooking dinner. Valencia, evening, warm, balcony doors open to street sounds below. Nathan's name made me freeze. First call since January. Dad. Formal, distant. Like I was a business contact he vaguely remembered. Nathan. I'm calling because I think you should know. I'm giving a speech at Mom's wedding. Victor asked me personally. It's an honor. I turned off the stove. Sophie mentioned that. He's a good man, Dad. Successful. Treats Mom the way she deserves. He's building something real. Nathan paused. Something you never seem to understand. I gripped the balcony railing. I'm glad your mother's happy. Are you? Because it seems like you just disappeared. Left a note like you were quitting a job. That landed hard, Nathan. I left a marriage that was destroying my health. Not you or your sister. You left us too. The silence stretched. Nathan, I know you're excited about this wedding. Just promise me something. What? You're good at your job because you verify numbers. Check sources. Don't stop doing that because it's family. What's that supposed to mean? Successful people aren't always what they appear. Ask questions. Look at the foundation before you build on it. I don't need advice from someone who walked away from everything. Nathan, the line went dead. I stood watching lights flicker on across Valencia. My paella had gone cold. The evening was still beautiful, but my chest felt tight in a way that had nothing to do with my heart. Sophie texted later. He called you. Yeah. I'm sorry. He'll understand eventually. Patricia confirmed Eleanor has her briefing. Logistics handled. Dad, are you sure about this? I typed back slowly. Whatever happens, you and Nathan will always have each other, and me. When he's ready. July 20th, 2024, 3 days before the wedding. While Diane and Victor rehearsed their vows at Taboo Resort, I was having morning coffee in Valencia. Sophie sent updates throughout their evening, her afternoon, my night. 6:32 p.m. Toronto time. 12:32 Valencia. Arrived at venue. Mom looks nervous, keeps adjusting her hair. Victor working the room. Lots of charm, maybe too much. 2008 p.m. 7:00 a.m. 1-2000. Nathan's rehearsal dinner toast. All about new chapters and what real partnership looks like. Didn't mention you. 2455 p.m. 1:45 a.m. Dad. Eleanor Marsh just arrived. She's perfect. Late 60s, silver hair. Looks like everyone's favorite aunt. Wearing pearls. Presence of a retired judge. 8:02 p.m. 2:09 A. Eleanor introduced herself to Victor as old friend of Mom's family. Knew her parents years ago. Complete fiction, but she sells it beautifully. Victor bought it completely. Kissed her cheek, welcomed her warmly. 8,028 PSEF. 2.28a. Event planner asked Patricia about Eleanor. Patricia vouched. Eleanor and I go way back. Wonderful woman, very traditional. Asked if she could say a few words about family and continuity. Planner approved. 8,054 p.m. 2,054a. Mom just talked to Eleanor for 15 minutes. Seemed confused for a moment. Doesn't remember any family connection. Then just smiled and played along. You know how she is. Never admits she doesn't know something. Eleanor is charming her completely. 9:338 p.m. 3:338 a.m. Rehearsal dinner, wrapping. Eleanor mingles like she's done this 1,000 times. Victor relaxed now, drinking scotch, arm around Mom. He has no idea. Dad, Nathan's going to be devastated tomorrow. You sure about this? My phone rang. 3:42 m. Valencia time. I took it on the balcony. City lights reflecting on ancient stone below. Sophie, whispering from a parking lot. Eleanor was flawless. Told stories about old Toronto days that were completely invented but so specific people believed every word. Victor suspects nothing, too busy being the center of attention. Nathan cornered me after dinner. Said Victor's his role model for building wealth. Said he's going to ask Victor to mentor him. Tomorrow's the ceremony. 3 p.m. Reception 5:30. Speeches around 6. Weather's perfect. Clear, 26 degrees. Sunset during dinner. Eleanor goes after family speeches. Before dancing. Last chance to back out, Dad. Truth isn't something you back out of. I'll record everything. I won't watch it live. Just take care of Nathan after. He'll need you. Always do. After we hung up, I tried sleeping. Couldn't. At Fira. Nole. M. I walked Valencia's narrow streets. Safe at that hour. Locals nodded as I passed. The elderly woman from the flower shop was arranging her display. Guilt surfaced in the pre-dawn quiet. Was this about protecting Nathan or punishing Diane? Honest answer. Both, maybe. But also 22 families about to lose $8 million. contractors not getting paid, employees about to lose jobs when Victor's empire collapsed. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability. I returned home as sunrise painted the cathedral towers gold. Texted Sophie, "Whatever happens today, I'm proud of you, both of you." The wedding day arrived. Sophie sent photos throughout, Diane in cream silk, Victor in charcoal, Nathan, proud and certain, standing beside him. 180 guests witnessing what looked like perfection. The ceremony went flawlessly. Vows, rings, kiss, applause. The Muskoka Lake sparkling behind them like something from a magazine. Then came the reception, the speeches. Nathan spoke first, 3 minutes praising Victor's vision, integrity, success, talking about what real achievement looked like. Then the floor opened for additional toasts. 6:08 p.m. Toronto time, 12:08 in Valencia. I was awake, but I wasn't watching, Sophie would tell me later. Right now, at a resort overlooking Lake Muskoka, Eleanor Marsh was rising from her seat. But first, Nathan spoke. Sophie sent me the video afterward. My son stood at the microphone, emotional, sincere, completely convinced. Victor Brennan represents everything I aspire to build. In less than 2 years, he's created an empire. 3 landmark developments, respected in the industry, and now married to my mother, who deserves nothing but the best. He's shown me what real success looks like. Vision, confidence, the courage to build something that lasts. To Victor and Diane, may your partnership be as solid as the foundations you've built together. Applause. Glasses clinking. Diane wiped tears. Victor nodded, satisfied, certain. When I watched it later, my chest ached for my son's innocence. And that's when Eleanor Marsh, 68, retired forensic accountant, stood and walked toward the microphone with the quiet authority of someone who'd spent 40 years making numbers tell the truth. Comment below. Have you ever watched truth dismantle someone's carefully constructed facade? Because that's exactly what happened next. My son stood there praising a fraud. 180 guests were about to learn why. Quick note. What follows includes dramatized elements for storytelling impact. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. But if you want to understand what happened next, stay with me. The event planner stepped forward. Professional smile in place. We have one more speaker. Eleanor Marsh, a longtime friend of the family. A ripple of polite confusion. Who? But the planner was smiling, Patricia nodding reassuringly from her table near the back. Eleanor rose. Approached the microphone with unhurried grace. Elegant gray dress, pearl earrings. The presence of someone accustomed to being listened to carefully. She held the microphone. Let silence settle. Professional technique. The room's attention locked onto her. Good evening, everyone. Her voice was warm, measured. My name is Eleanor Marsh. I've known families like this. Families who value success, ambition, beautiful celebrations, for many years. I wanted to take a moment to honor this union, but also to talk about something I believe is profoundly important. She paused, smiled gently. Foundations. Diane, you look absolutely radiant tonight. Victor, you've clearly built something impressive. 3 major developments in 18 months. That's remarkable growth for any developer. Her tone shifted, still warm, but precise. As someone who spent 4 decades analyzing financial structures, I have to admit, it makes me curious. Guests leaned in. How does someone launch 3 major pre-construction projects simultaneously without traditional institutional financing? I looked at the public records. You understand. Caution is in my nature. She glanced around the room, grandmotherly, concerned. Your construction liens total over $800,000 in unpaid contractor invoices. There are 14 Tarian complaints registered against your projects. A former investment partner has a pending lawsuit alleging $2.1 million in misappropriated funds. These aren't secrets. They're public documents. Anyone with internet access can find them. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Phones emerged from pockets and purses. But in my experience, most people don't look. We see the lifestyle, the confidence, the beautiful renderings, and the charity galas. We forget to ask about foundations. Victor's face had gone pale. Diane's champagne glass trembled in her hand. Growth this rapid usually means one of 2 things. Either extraordinary capital reserves or creative arrangements with other people's money. A long pause. I've seen this pattern before in my work. It typically takes 6 to 12 months for the foundation to collapse completely. The investors, I believe there are 22 of them, mostly friends and family of friends. They'll be the ones holding empty promises when this facade comes down. She looked directly at Diane. So I'd like to propose a toast. She raised her glass. To Diane and her second chance at happiness. To Victor, whose empire looks magnificent from the outside. Her voice softened but didn't waver. May your future together be as solid as the foundations it's built on. Because in my experience, truth always surfaces. It's only a matter of timing. She raised her glass higher. To truth. And the courage to seek it. Silence. Complete. Suffocating. Then chaos. Guests pulled out phones, fingers flying across screens, Google searches illuminating faces in the Muskoka twilight. Victor's face went scarlet. He moved toward Eleanor. The event planner rushed forward. Diane stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then she grabbed her dress and ran toward the lodge, heels clicking on the deck. Cameras, phones, everything being recorded. Nathan stood absolutely still, his world tilting on its axis. My phone rang at Dos 18, and Valencia time. I stared at Diane's name for 4 rings. Answered, her voice trembling. Fury and panic braided together. You did this. You planted her. You destroyed everything. You couldn't just let me be happy. You had to. I let her finish. The accusations, the rage, the betrayal, the 32 years of grievances compressed into 3 minutes of screaming. When she finally ran out of words, I spoke quietly. Diane, I'm sitting on a balcony in Valencia. It's past midnight. I don't know who that woman is or why she said those things. A lie. But necessary. But maybe someone finally asked the questions you should have asked before marrying him. Silence. Then a sound. Half sob, half scream. The line went dead. I set the phone down and looked out at the Valencia night. Ancient streets and cathedral spires, and a life I'd rebuilt from nothing. 6,000 kilometers away. Her perfect wedding was unraveling, and I felt nothing but relief. I didn't watch the video until the next morning. By then, it had 720,000 views. 24 hours later, 2.8 million. The internet remembers everything, and it forgives nothing. I woke at 8 a.m., Valencia time, July 21st. Messages from Sophie waiting. It's everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wedding disaster compilations. Current views, 1.4 million and climbing. I opened the link she sent. Video posted by a wedding guest. Caption: This grandma just ended a marriage at the reception, and I can't stop watching. The video. Eleanor's entire speech. Audio crystal clear thanks to the microphone. 3 minutes, 42 seconds. View count updating in real time. The comments were exploding, the way she said creative arrangements with other people's money. I felt that. Imagine Googling your husband during the reception and finding fraud lawsuits. This woman chose truth over vibes, and honestly, respect. The bride's face at 2:24 when she realizes everyone's on their phones. May your future be as solid as your foundations, is the classiest way to say good luck with that. By noon, Valencia time, 2.1 million views. By evening, 2.8 million. Compilation videos appeared. Most brutal wedding speeches. Memes of Diane's frozen expression, Victor's crimson fury, Nathan's devastated confusion. Reddit threads. Let's find those public documents the accountant mentioned. News coverage. Toronto media, business blogs, real estate forums. Sophie kept me updated on Victor's collapse. Within 48 hours, the Ontario Securities Commission opened an inquiry. Potential investor fraud. Bank freeze. Brennan Development's accounts locked pending investigation. The investor group. Emergency meeting. Retained Securities Litigation Counsel. Terrion escalated all 14 complaints to priority review. Contractors filed additional liens. 3 filed for receivership protection. Margaret Chen amended her lawsuit, added evidence. Within 72 hours, all 3 projects suspended. Stop work orders from municipalities pending financial review. Employees not getting paid. Victor's social media. Deleted. Too late. Everything archived. His lawyer issued a statement. Mr. Brennan categorically denies all allegations and looks forward to clearing his name. Victor himself. No public appearances, not answering calls. Sophie tracked Diane's situation too. Her design firm. Emergency client calls about the video. 6 projects paused pending clarification. Social media, now private, but screenshots circulating everywhere. Friends keeping distance. Social exile in Oakville's professional circles. Diane's response. Called Sophie, panicked. Blamed me. It's your father. He orchestrated this. Sophie's response. Dad's in Spain. Mom, he didn't do anything. But you should have researched Victor before marrying him. The legal exposure accumulating. Victor had gifted Diane a Mercedes worth $92,000 2 months before the wedding. Paid from investor accounts. Traceable. The investor group would sue to recover it. Diane would likely become a defendant. July 23rd. Nathan called me. His voice completely different. Small. Shaking. Young. Dad. Nathan. Victor's company. They're under investigation. Securities regulators. The lawsuit that woman mentioned. It's real. All of it. Silence. My firm called me in. Asked about my relationship with Victor Brennan. They've seen the video. Everyone's seen it. I'm in that video, Dad, praising him, calling him a role model, saying he's what success looks like. I know. They're putting me on administrative leave, pending review, questioning my judgment. My manager asked if I knew about the financial irregularities before the wedding. What did you tell them? The truth. That I didn't know. That I should have asked questions but didn't. Long pause. You tried to warn me. You said, check the foundation. Look at the numbers. I called you bitter. I said you were jealous. You weren't ready to hear it then. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything, for not listening, for blaming you, for taking her side for so many years when I should have. I know, son. I know. We talked for an hour. Nathan asked about Valencia. My health, my life, my paintings. I was honest. I'm good, better than good. I'm healthy. I'm at peace. That's good. You deserve that. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. Plans. Nathan would visit Valencia once things stabilized. Me. The door's always open, whenever you're ready. After we hung up, I stood on the balcony watching the sun set over the Turia. My son was finally listening. Diane's perfect life was unraveling under scrutiny. Victor's empire was collapsing under its own hollow weight. And I was 6,000 kilometers away, healthy, free, finally at peace. Justice wasn't revenge. Justice was simply truth finally given a voice. 18 months later, January 2026, I'm sitting on the same balcony where this story began. Valencia hasn't changed. The cathedral bells still ring at sunset. The vendors at Mercado Central still correct my Spanish with patient smiles. But everything else has transformed. Victor Brennan was charged by the Ontario Securities Commission in October 2024. 23 counts. Securities fraud, investor fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. His trial lasted 5 weeks in June 2025. Guilty on 19 counts. Sentenced in September. 8 years, federal prison. No parole eligibility for 3 years. His assets were liquidated. Investors recovered 28 cents on the dollar. 22 families who trusted the wrong smile, the wrong numbers, the wrong dream. He's currently at Joyceville Institution. Inmate. Diane was sued by the investor group in September 2024 for $412,000. The Mercedes, jewelry, gifts, funded with their money. She defaulted on the Oakville house mortgage in November, sold it in January 2025 for $2.4 million, after paying off $9 million in debt, plus $187,000 in legal fees and real estate commissions. She netted $313,000, minus the lawsuit settlement, minus her own legal costs. She ended up with essentially nothing. She filed for bankruptcy protection in March 2025. Her design license was suspended pending the bankruptcy resolution. She's living in Mississauga now, renting a basement apartment, working reception at a real estate office. $22 an hour. Her social circle evaporated. She called Sophie once in April, asking for money. Sophie said no. Nathan went through administrative review at his firm, cleared of any wrongdoing. But his reputation took damage. He was transferred to internal audit, same salary, less prestige, less trust. He started therapy in October 2024. learning to recognize manipulation, building boundaries, understanding why he'd spent his whole life seeking approval from someone incapable of giving it. He visited me in Valencia in December 2024. We spent 10 days together, walking the old town, cooking paella badly, talking about Diane, about childhood, about patterns we inherit and patterns we choose. He told me one night, over wine, on my balcony, I spent my whole childhood protecting Mom. Never once asked if you needed protecting from her. I'm sorry, Dad. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. In March, he met Priya, emergency room nurse at Toronto Western, different from anyone he'd dated before. Grounded, kind, direct. He called me in November. Dad, I'm going to propose. Will you be there? I'll fly back for that. Absolutely. Sophie's thriving, senior partner track. Won a national award for her forensic accounting work. She calls every Sunday without fail. We're solid. We always were. As for me, my health transformed completely. Blood pressure 118/74. Weight stable at 76 kilograms. No thanks. In advanced symptoms in 2 years. My neurologist in Valencia said during my last checkup, whatever you're doing, don't stop. My days found their rhythm. I swim mornings at the municipal pool, have breakfast at Café Lisboa. Carlos knows my order by heart now. Afternoons I paint. Sold 4 pieces last year. Small gallery in El Carmen shows my work. Evenings I take Spanish literature classes at the University Extension. I'm conversational now, discussing poetry and politics, not just ordering food. I built a small circle here. Expat friends, local artists, neighbors who invite me for Sunday lunch. My portfolio grew to $4.1 million, generates $108,000 annually, covers my $52,000 in expenses comfortably, more than comfortably. I feel no bitterness toward Diane. True indifference, no guilt about leaving, none. Pride in my children, immense and constant, no romantic relationship. By choice. I'm not lonely, I'm complete. I learned something important. Being alone doesn't mean being incomplete. Sometimes it means being whole for the first time. Diane lost everything she traded me for. Victor lost his freedom through his own choices. Nathan learned hard lessons and emerged stronger. Sophie stayed true to herself, as she always has. People ask me if I'm happy now. The question seems too small. I'm at peace, because I finally chose myself when everything said I shouldn't. Looking back, I realize I spent 32 years making myself smaller, believing that sacrifice meant love, believing that if I just tried harder, gave more, needed less, somehow that would be enough. I was wrong. God gives us one life, one body, one spirit. And when we let others diminish those gifts, when we let ourselves disappear into someone else's vision of what we should be, we're not being noble. We're betraying our own purpose. Don't be like me. Don't wait for a stroke scare to hear what your soul already knows. Don't waste decades hoping things will magically improve. They won't. God helps those who help themselves. And sometimes the most faithful act is walking away from what's slowly killing you. The lesson I learned too late. Verification isn't cynicism. It's wisdom. Whether it's a marriage, a business partner, an investment, a promise, verify the foundation before building your life on it. Public records don't lie. Patterns don't lie. Your body's warnings don't lie. Listen to them. God speaks through truth, not through the facades we desperately want to believe. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings wrapped in narrative. Each one carries lessons paid for with years of someone's life. That's why these stories matter. Wisdom that one generation earns the hard way, so the next doesn't have to. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Gilded Vengeance for more stories that challenge and transform. Thank you for staying until the end. I see you. Quick note. Upcoming stories may contain fictionalized elements for educational purposes. If that's not for you, explore other content. But if you're ready for more truth and more lessons, I'll see you in the next one.